So when I got attacked, it was very random. 4 guys jumped out of a car and just started beating me and my friend. And they broke my jaw and my teeth. I was unconscious. Then I woke up and I screamed. And I screamed because even though I didn't know who I was or where I was, something in me was just like, hold on, wait, they could kill me and I'm not going to let that happen. This is the greatest story of my life. Everything in my life is before this one night and after this one night.
This week we have Anna Runkle on the podcast, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy. She helps people heal from childhood trauma and teaches powerful tools to build real connection in a world that often feels so disconnected.
My parents were alcoholics, and when they got divorced when I was 7, my mom brought in a bunch of people to live there. They were really into drugs and alcohol. And so we were neglected, we were hungry sometimes, we got very, very poor. Talking about trauma isn't always great for people. It's not always the best thing. And I read some statistic that about 1/3 of people who were traumatized as kids feel worse when they talk about it, get very dysregulated. We all, I think, need to express who we are, what we've been through, what we hope for. And to do that, you can do this with writing.
I'm Radhi and on my podcast, A Really Good Cry, we embrace the real, the messy, and the beautiful, providing a space for raw, unfiltered conversations that celebrate vulnerability and allow you to tune in to learn, connect, and find comfort together. Anna, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
So grateful that you're here. Yeah. I had a beautiful look and insight into your new book, Connectability, and honestly, I can say I cannot wait to read the rest. It is such an incredible book. I feel like you've put so much of your own self into it, but also so many incredible tools that are useful for not just people who are struggling, but people who need it every single day. Yeah. So thank you so much for the work that you do. And I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Before we get into your book and the work that you do, I kind of want to scroll all the way back to the beginning of why you started doing what you're doing. I would love to hear your background story.
I know, isn't it strange? Who knew? Well, I grew up in a commune in Berkeley.
Okay.
It wasn't always a commune. It started out kind of normal, and my parents were alcoholics. And when they got divorced when I was 7, my mom brought in a bunch of people to live there, and a lot, 14 people in our house. And they were really into drugs and alcohol. And it was the era of free love, and a lot of the grown-ups testing out the idea that, all this family parenting thing was just the man or something. Right. And they needed to get free, and they would just abandon their duties. So sometimes my grandparents swooped in and took care of us, and sometimes neighbors took us in. In those days, they didn't report, but my mom was just she was just living a youth that she didn't get to have or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we were neglected. We were hungry sometimes. We got very, very poor. Didn't, welfare, food stamps. But the welfare money would go to cigarettes and alcohol. Right. So we had to be very resourceful as kids.
And I know you started a YouTube channel called Crappy Childhood Fairy. I was wondering where that name came from and what the context is of that.
Well, so, okay. People my age will remember this cartoon called Fractured Fairy Tales.
Okay.
And there was this... In my memory, she was this stumpy little fairy who she would come in to introduce each new segment of the cartoon. And she had a wand, and she had this frown on her face. And I thought she had a cigarette hanging from her lips, but I went and found it on YouTube. No cigarette, but she would just be sort of there's your wish. And so when I had this dream that I had to write this book from when I first recovered 30 years ago. And then in 2016, I went to Brendan Burchard. I think he's a friend of yours. I went to his, he had this 4-day seminar that he's now organized into a more modern format, but it was called Experts Academy. And I just sat there and I was just tell me how to take my story and turn it into this. And I thought that it would be a book. It finally is. It turned into a whole lot of other things in between. Yeah. But originally, I gave it this very sanitary name called Your Healing Year. Yep. That I would never want to read a book called that. It had to be more fun. And it just came to me one day. I was thinking about this boyfriend I had. He wasn't even a boyfriend. He was a thing. Yeah. Just a little thing. And he just ghosted me one day. And my friend went to go find out, why haven't you called Anna? And he said, she thinks she's special to me. She's 1 in 30 to me. And at the time, it was like a knife.
Of course.
But by the time I was writing this book, I was just laughing. I was laughing so hard. What a funny thing to say. And I thought, this needs to be a cartoon. I can't, telling this story in all seriousness is just and then, do you know what he said?
Oh,
I was so free already from like the pain of the past that just these adventures, seemed whimsical to me.
Yeah.
So that's when I thought, this has got to have another name. So I came out in the living room one day and I said, listen, I'm getting a lot of views on YouTube and I'm going to change the name and I'm going to call it Crappy Childhood Fairy. And my sons who were in high school, they were like, no, Mom, you can't be on YouTube. You can't call yourself. No, YouTube is for people like us. And I was 53 when I started Crappy Childhood Fairy. Yeah.
That's amazing. And for anybody who doesn't know, that's a very successful YouTube channel where you speak about all your work on there. And the people that I've read the comments from, they just seem like you've really helped change and transform their life. At what point in your life did you realize that your childhood and what you went through was affecting your adulthood?
Kind of early on when I was in college, I went to therapy for the first time.
Okay.
And the therapist was like, you're an adult child of an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And I read the literature. There was like one book about it then.
Right.
And I was like, oh, so I am. But it was a very gloomy sort of science and prognosis. And I was really having a hard time then. I was over-functioning. I was in so much stress all the time. My body hurt. It was like 107 pounds, which was like skinny like a model, but not healthy. Right. And smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, trying to cope with my emotions.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the 12-step program for families of alcoholics, and it was tremendously helpful. But really what changed my life was before I did that it just, okay, can I back up?
Yes, please.
This terrible thing happened. I was sort of handling life up to age 30. I was holding it together. I was acting normal. I was doing outward things that make you look like life is okay. Yeah. Then my mom died. I got my heart broken a little before that. I was very depressed and I got randomly attacked on the street.
Oh my gosh.
And that, it's funny, like it sounds like it's like the worst thing that ever happened, but in a weird way, it was the beginning of the good thing coming because I had to find something different. And I had not felt good about myself before that day. And for a while afterwards, I didn't feel good about myself. But my mom was the sort of person who would get drunk and say, oh, I should never have had you. And I knew, even when I was 6, I knew, like, she doesn't mean it.
Right.
But it kind of puts a curse on you. It's like this place that I would go every time the going got tough, like I'm not really supposed to be here. And that's a very bad thought. That's like usually what people are thinking when they're thinking of ending their lives.
Yeah.
And so when I got attacked, it was very random. 4 guys jumped out of a car and just started beating me and my friend. And they broke my jaw and my teeth. I was unconscious. Then I woke up and I screamed. And I screamed because even though I didn't know who I was or where I was, something in me was just like, hold on, wait, they could kill me and I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to get through this. And I did. But after that happened, I had PTSD. Yeah. And in those days, they didn't think of PTSD as something that you get from street violence or something like that. They thought of it as like a war thing. So I was never diagnosed. I was, the state of California has this generous pot of money for victims of violent crimes. So I was able to go to my therapist 3 times instead of 1 time. And I would talk and talk and talk. And she'd go, come on, let's talk again about what happened, your mom, the death, the attack. But I would get so rattled in those sessions. It wasn't going anywhere. It was just like this opening up the wound, getting all messed up about it. And I'd have to go sit in my car for 45 minutes before I could drive. I was just like shaking afterwards. And at the time, I would just say, I don't know. I just don't think this is going very well. Yeah. She'd say, well, it's going to get worse before it gets better. You're processing a lot of deep stuff. And so I went along with that. But it was getting so bad, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I told the doctor, and the doctor's like, here, let's put you on Xanax. And so with everything I know now, because now I've done all my research about what is complex PTSD, what was going on with me, I have a lot of answers. I still have questions, but I have a lot of answers. And what I know was talking about the trauma and then taking medications, it was dysregulating me. Oh. My nervous system was a wreck from talking about it. I couldn't recover. Okay. And then taking drugs to calm myself when I was in that state was making it impossible for me to re-regulate. Because I find everybody gets dysregulated sometimes, and almost everybody can get re-regulated naturally.
Could you share for anybody who doesn't know what complex PTSD is?
Well, it's the kind of PTSD that can come from chronic, ongoing, intense stress. It could happen in adulthood. from a war or an abusive relationship, but usually it's from childhood, a lot of abuse and neglect in childhood. And the word for it only got popularized maybe in 2013, 2014, when Bessel van der Kolk's book came out, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
I happened to buy that when it came out because I was about to get married and I had gotten very emotionally dysregulated and freaked out my fiance, my then fiance. And I bought the book to find out, why do I do that? Why do I self-sabotage like that? And I read the symptoms of complex PTSD, and for the first time, I knew exactly what I'd had this whole time.
Could you share some of those symptoms?
Sure. The core symptom is that you get dysregulated. Your nervous system is just not quite doing its job exactly right. And your nervous system is this beautiful part of your body that governs virtually everything but your spirit. It's your metabolism, your digestion, your hormones, your immune system, your movements, your ability to sense temperature and space and to feel emotions and to feel connected to the world. So when that's not quite working properly, it can really throw you off. And once you kind of see what it is, it's one of those things like you see it everywhere. You're like, oh, that's why kids can't learn in school when it's so hard at home. Oh, that's why I had such a hard time, trying to go on dates. There's measurable things that happen. There's a lot that's a mystery. We know that people who have complex, or people who had a rough childhood, let's put it that way, they're at such a high risk, much higher risk, straight correlation for heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, reproductive disorders, autoimmune disorders especially, but of course, and then the things that we've known for a while, like mental illness, depression, anxiety, difficult relationships, addictions. But it was just like everything: dementia, learning disabilities, memory problems. There's almost nothing that isn't made worse by a history of early trauma. And so to the best they know, it's because of changes in the nervous system that result from that chronic stress, that soup of stress hormones, but also neglect. That eye contact and cuddling and, intimacy between parent and child, that if your parent couldn't give you that, it might have put a dent in your neurodevelopment.
And how does you mentioned dysregulation, and how does that show up as an adult? What would that look like for someone?
Yeah, so you feel, I think the number one thing is you feel discombobulated, a little off. You wake up in a bad mood. We have all these sayings for it. I'm having a senior moment. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you forget why you walked into the room. You're sort of spacing out too much. You drive somewhere and you don't really remember the journey. Yeah. The one that other people feel the most and really notice, because this one hurts them, and it's emotional dysregulation. Lashing out over something that doesn't seem to deserve a big lash out, panicking about something, or rushing into a romance, things like that. All the emotions, they're just so big. And we live in this culture that's always saying, all emotions are good, feel your feelings, trust your gut. But if you have complex PTSD, that might be advice for your future, but not yet.
Right.
Your gut is not matched reality yet consistently. And under stress, you can see it in the brain. The left front cortex, where reasoning is supposed to be happening, is darkening. And the right front cortex, where emotion is happening, is lighting up. So it's very emotional, not very reasonable. And that's how people perceive emotional dysregulation from the outside. You're being unreasonable.
And you mentioned, obviously, we get that sometimes it can throw you off for a day. But if someone is experiencing that for a long period of time, how do you know the difference between, I'm just having a bad day, versus if someone's been going through it for a while, they'll feel like this is just my normality? This is how do you observe yourself in that way? Or what are some tools that people can use to really know, or questions they could ask to think, is this actually happening to me? Because I think sometimes you can be numb to it, can't you?
Most of us took it personally. We just thought, I'm just some sort of defective person,
right,
who gets very weirded out by things that nobody else does. But it's not nobody else. The great thing about sharing my experience on YouTube was that all of a sudden thousands of people came back at me and said, oh my God, you've just described what it's like to be me. I've never heard that before. And now I know, I'm not alone. And now we know, now that we know, it's normal. We have normal symptoms for something abnormal that happened. It's normal. And the great news is it can be healed.
Yeah.
But my whole life is about that. I used to listen to a lot of negative messages about, like, you're just trying to recreate your childhood, or, it's going to be very hard before it gets better.
Yeah.
Just kind of this whole, like, taking on this heavy identity of, like, well, I was abused and I'm one of the abused people.
Yeah.
And without having to deny that or stuff it down or pretend or wear a mask, I've learned how I can process that experience and have a nice, fresh nervous system and perspective on my life and be able to have a new day every day. And what I've been through in the past makes me wise rather than broken.
Walk me through that. So you said therapy wasn't something that helped you, but could you give me some tools that did actually help you get to a place from feeling like you're repeating that negative feeling over and over again to being someone who feels empowered by it?
So therapy, as we know it, works for a lot of people. And talk therapy is sort of like the gold standard. I think that's shifting right now because finally, the people like me are coming out and vocalizing and going, yeah, that didn't work for me. And there's this resistance to admitting that talking about trauma isn't always great for people. It's not always the best thing. And I read some statistic that about a third of people who were traumatized as kids feel worse when they talk about it, get very dysregulated. So we all, I think, need to express who we are, what we've been through, what we hope for. Like, we need to express ourselves and be our real selves above everything. Like, that's really the goal, is to bring our unique gifts into the world. And to do that, sometimes this has to be talked about and somebody's got to validate you. But you know how you can do it? You can do this with writing. Writing is a different neural pathway. And for many people, it's a lot. The triggers are not just standing there waiting to throw you back into dysregulation and get your cortisol and adrenaline going because you talked about what happened.
Right.
And so that's this funny thing. Like, I make YouTube videos and sometimes I'm riffing, but if I'm going to talk about something really hard, it's totally scripted and it's on a prompter. And luckily I'm very good at it. Barely people can tell, but I can read a script that I wrote about what I want to say about my experience and I'm fine.
Yeah.
I tried EMDR. That's a form of therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Oh, what is that?
It's a technique that a woman figured it out walking down the street, and she was looking around and she realized she felt better after being sad. I think she was a researcher I don't know. She was in a position to help us understand this. And it ended up being adopted by the Veterans Association Administration for the treatment of intense PTSD. Like, it's clinically validated to be quite effective for many things. Nothing is ever like the panacea, but I tried it. I was offered some help from this guy who normally just treated homeless vets who were addicts in San Francisco, but I met him at a party. I was going through a really hard time. I had very bad PTSD. And he said, I could help you with this. I can see by the way your eyes are moving around, you have trauma. And I said, really? Yeah. My partner just died. And he said, well, I'll give you some sessions of EMDR. And I said, I've always wanted that, but let me tell you, it's 2008. I have no money. Everybody was out of work that year. And I was a single mom. He said, that's all right. You're a friend of our meditation teacher. We had the same meditation teacher. It was his birthday. And so he gave me 5 sessions and like a whole bunch of adult trauma, just the assault, a very difficult birth, 5 things that have been hard for me were just like all the charge was taken out of them in 5 single sessions. So that was amazing. So then I tried it for like childhood stuff. No go. That's one of the things that is known about it. It's less effective for trauma that happened earlier. Because whatever trauma does to you very early, like before you can speak, it's of a different nature. You don't have access to the memory necessarily, but there's some sort of squirrely thing that goes on inside when it is triggered. And when I say trigger, I just want to say it. Yeah, I mean a stimulus that prompts dysregulation.
Right. And do you think you have to go backwards to be able to really move forward? Like, do you think if you've gone through trauma, whether it's a veteran, whether it's someone who's gone through childhood, do you think someone has to go back and unlock that and look it over and really, analyze it before they're able to move forward? Or do you think there's a way for people to create new neural pathways in their mind to actually just look forward rather than letting what's back there affect them?
I did go to therapy, so I had the chance to say this stuff. So I hesitate to say you don't need it,
Right.
but I never need it again. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
I think there's way too much emphasis on it. It went on way too long. I went for 17 years, and
Wow.
I don't think we ever caught up with like, yeah, but what can I do right now to function better and solve some of my problems and bad habits and the things that I re-traumatize myself with, the things that sabotage my relationships, that hold me back professionally. It was so hard having untreated CPTSD. I had so much potential. I was smart. I really cared. I loved people. I was funny. I had talent. And everything that I tried would get cut short because I would just sort of collapse emotionally, or I would blow up at somebody and sort of ruin things. And it would just always lead to failure. And I thought it was me. So that's the double whammy.
Do you think, is there any specific type of therapy that people should be looking for if they're feeling the same way as you?
Yeah.
Are there specific qualifications in a therapist they could look for, or the types of therapy that somebody does that could be different?
Well, there are a whole bunch of schools of therapy now.
Okay.
And I hesitate to say like, oh, this one's great and this one's not. Different ones work for different people.
Yeah.
But I think the ones that don't acknowledge dysregulation as the core symptom, that if it's going on, no information can be processed.
Right.
The person's just going to get very upset and, not learn anything from the discussion. I remember my therapist was always astonished. It's like, but last week you said you were going to, I'd be like, really? Did I say that? I literally couldn't remember what we talked about. My brain was off.
Wow.
From talking about the trauma. But also I feel like culturally we're at this moment, and I think this is why my channel is popular. I'm tough love. I'm not a therapist. I don't have to, I can give advice, I don't treat childhood wounds. I mean, I had a bad childhood, and I know for a fact I can't change my childhood.
Yeah.
And I can't change the people who hurt me. They're not even alive anymore. What I can change is the self-defeating behaviors that trauma sort of led me to have. And that is where, that's where I find out. This is where the rubber meets the road for my students, is like, are you ready? Are you ready to look at that? Because this is the part you can change. I think it's so exciting. It's like, oh, I see something that I've been doing that's messing me up. Yeah. Yay. That I can change. Yes. And instead of it's just a really common narrative. They go, well, I can't stop shoplifting, for example. I'm just trying to think of something that's universally considered a bad thing. I can't stop shoplifting. My parents never gave me nice things. It's like, okay, I'm sorry about the childhood part, but you got to stop shoplifting or you're going to get your life into big trouble. Yeah.
I feel like the idea of constantly punishing yourself and constantly feeling, like you said, when your mom would say to you, oh, I wish you were never born, like how that sits in your mind.
Yeah.
But I wonder if people are able to how did you take that and then create your new pathway, create that feeling of confidence in yourself, of self-worth in yourself? Because I think there's so many steps that need to be taken for that to happen. How did you become someone who had self-worth?
Yeah, this is the greatest story of my life. This is everything in my life is before this one night and after this one night. So I had reached the conclusion that I couldn't go on. And I was in that sad state that people get into where I was thinking of giving my stuff away, and I hadn't told anyone, and I didn't want to tell the therapist. But I really thought there was something so wrong with me. I mean, I had severe PTSD on top of the childhood PTSD. I was about to get fired at work because I was shooting my mouth off there and things that I was just emotionally dysregulated. If something irked me, I would just blast people. So I had already pushed everybody away in my life, and I thought, I'm hopeless. And I was in this improv group. Luckily, I had something fun going on in my life. I wasn't liking it at the time. I hated everybody. I was suffering with severe disconnection from people, and people were backing away from me, and I was pushing them away. This is what happens. This is why I had to write my second book, Connectability. But what happened was I gave her a ride home from rehearsal, and I said, you know what? I think I have a plan tomorrow. I don't know why I told her. Like, if you really are serious, you don't give somebody a chance to stop you. And obviously I wanted to be stopped. I wanted to be stopped. And I instinctively knew she was the person to trust. And she was this odd person. I was 30. She was 23. She's covered with tattoos. She was swearing like a sailor, but also talking about God. And, I lived in Berkeley. So people who talked about God, we were like they're just crazy people or something, And she was just so alive, and you could see it. Her eyes were very bright. And sometimes when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and she said, "Do you want? I know that feeling. I've totally been there. Do you want me to show you what I did when I first got sober as a teenager? But I found like I was just angry all the time, and I thought it wasn't worth staying alive if I couldn't drink. And I never had a problem with drinking per se. It's still like really painful for me to talk about. Like, I'm so grateful. Everything turned around. I think at the time, like so many people who have those thoughts, you're very out of touch with the reality of all that is precious in life. And it was a temporary situation. But how did I know that? I didn't know. I was doing everything you were supposed to do, and it was making things worse. So she said, "Come in." She made me this cup of tea. And it was this freezing cold warehouse in Oakland, in the middle of the night. She was sort of a cool punk rock girl. And she showed me something that she had been shown by a woman from AA. And because my friend, her name was Rachel, she had been living on the streets of the Tenderloin in her teens, or she'd been kicked out of the house. So she had been through a lot, but she's this lovely person to this day. She's this incredible person. She has a whole program for helping people get sober. Amazing. It's called Sober and Alive. She's great. She's a success story. But I just instinctively trusted her, though, even though she was so strange. She said, "Come here, write God on a piece of paper, write God." I was like, "God?" Oh. And she's like, "Well, you're going to be dead tomorrow. What does it matter?" Right. So I thought, okay. So I wrote God. And she goes, "Now tell God what fears you have." And I said, "I have fear, fear I'm not going to make it, fear I'm broken, fear." And she got me to write for like an hour and a half, and I started to feel good, and tears were coming. And I was starting to have a connection with this piece of paper and this pen and her presence, and just knowing she was there. She was just doing her thing. It's like 3 a.m. She goes, "Now get to your resentments." And she knew me well enough to know I was so resentful. Right. I was such a feral possum. I was just, I was so angry about things. And when you have trauma, it makes it very hard to convert upsetting experiences that make you angry or sad or scared into memories. Right. They just stay bouncing around, full of all the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol and things.
Same emotion.
It's so much. You're just so packed with emotion. Where are you going to go with it? And it's very hard to take in new information or to look at a situation and go, "Oh, maybe this isn't so bad." There's just no room. So that's what it's like. So she's like, "Here, you just pour it out. Just give it to the paper." And I must have written 15 pages that first night, just writing and writing. And it felt good. And then she showed me how to write a little prayer at the end to ask for them to be removed. And then she said, "Now ask God to, show you what you're supposed to be doing and give you the power to do it." So I did that. I felt good enough, okay, fine, I'll do what you say. She said, "Now go home. I got to go to sleep. It's 5 a.m. Call me when you wake up and read this to me." So I did that. And when I went home, I went to sleep. I woke up and I felt delicious. I just hadn't felt good in so long. And I just couldn't wait to do it again. I woke up, made some coffee, did it again, called her. I got to read what I wrote. And she was so kind and understanding. And we ended up laughing at some of the stuff that I was resentful about. It was funny. And she was like, "Oh, everybody's so mean to me." We ended up lighthearted about it. And it was this amazing feeling of love too. I just loved her so much for showing up for me like she did. Yeah. And she stayed connected to me as my friend for those early months. We're still friends, but those early months, she was really there with me. And within a few weeks, it was 2 weeks. Now, I was never diagnosed with PTSD. They didn't give me any diagnosis. They were just like, "You're very upset. Yeah. You're a very upset woman. You cry a lot. You're mad. I don't know. Get out of here. Take some pills." But my mind cleared up. The PTSD symptoms cleared up. It's like something really re-regulated. And it was so remarkable. And I didn't have the luxury of staying home from work. At work, suddenly, I could not only do my job, but I could listen. Wow. And the day I knew everything was different was I was sitting in a business meeting with everybody. And it's mostly women, and they were talking, like women do. And was like popcorn going on. And I was just listening. And for the first time in my life, for an hour, I listened to a conversation and my mind wasn't wandering or, thinking about the future, the past, or what I was going to say. I was just sort of taking in what everybody was saying. And I go, well, what about, and I said something and it was just like, you could hear a pin drop. Everybody was like, whoa, I had said the most brilliant, insightful thing that was based on listening to what everybody had said. And it wasn't long before my career took off. I got into this really fancy grad school within a year that I somehow talked my way into late. Within a couple of months, I didn't have depression anymore. And I felt so happy. I told my therapist all these 3 visits a week. I was like, you know what? it kind of brings me down coming here and talking about bad things. And I feel like I'm ready to stop. And she was worried because she had seen me before.
Yes.
And she said, well, why don't you come a few more times so I can make sure? She thought maybe I'd gone nuts.
Yeah.
And, but I just wasn't troubled by the past. The second thing that Rachel told me to do, she said, write this, sign off, do this twice a day, and then go to a meditation teacher and learn how to meditate. I learned Vedic meditation at the time. And
what kind of meditation was that?
Transcendental meditation.
So there was a chanting meditation?
No chanting, just a silent mantra.
Silent mantra. Okay.
Yeah, silent mantra. Very simple. Meditate.
Yeah.
From the Maharishi who taught the Beatles.
Yes.
And so all these people in AA were doing that. So I went and did that. And it's like the writing sort of clears your mind and the meditation rests your mind. And this is my experience of it. Your mind and nervous system just kind of recompose. All of a sudden you're just sort of put right again. And you're fresh again. Like a baby who's not crying anymore. Just like, here I am. And that's what the experience was like. And it was my body started to heal. I had a lot of chronic stress-related health conditions at the time. Bad knees, bad back, asthma, migraines, common things for traumatized people. All that just totally cleared up. I started running. My skin turned rosy and glowed and still had problems, from habits that I had I still smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
I still had this strange attraction to completely disaster people, men, and stuff that I had to practice more. And that life is like that. Like when you've lived dysregulated all your life, you end up with these weird habits to try to make life work. And it takes conscious undoing. And so with mentoring and with practice and willingness, I was able to completely turn around my life problems.
I love that you had, it took one person that changed your whole trajectory, one evening that changed everything.
Saved my life.
Isn't that such a beautiful idea that just, it takes one night for you to decide that you want to turn your life around. And honestly, in the book, when I was reading it, that was my favorite part. The part where you were sharing the writing part, where you give them prompts of what you want for your life, the way to write it down. It was so beautifully written. I could feel your heart through that writing.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And now hearing the story behind it, it's so much deeper. Like it's such a beautiful practice to just give your heart to paper and just let it do that. And you're right. Sometimes I think speaking to people, we fear, even if it's someone you don't know, even if it's your therapist, you fear judgment, you fear, you have worry about what they're going to think about you or whether they're going to keep it a secret for you, whatever the fears are. But when you end up writing it down on paper, it's just you and the paper. Like there's nothing to hide behind, no one to be worried about. It's such a beautiful practice to put in place.
I had a radical spiritual awakening within a few months of the whole thing where I was given I all of a sudden, I don't want to get very specific about it because in this milieu, it'll sound thin and cheeseball, but I'll just say I was shown one afternoon, I just had an afternoon where my consciousness lifted up and I could see that there was life in all things, and including me, and there was no way that I was not supposed to be here. I was absolutely part of this life and that I belong.
Wow. And then that leads us on to your book, Connectability.
Yeah.
Tell us why you made it and what juicy things you've written inside of it, because it's a brilliant book. And who is it made for?
Well, People who had childhood trauma have an almost universal symptom that they feel a sense of disconnection. And so people who are watching right now, I see you, I know, it's a sense of disconnection that you never quite fit in. You get easily overlooked for what's good about you. You get talked over, misunderstood, feel like an outsider everywhere you go, bullied maybe.
Okay.
And sometimes this is happening because people have ostracized us, people can be quite cruel to each other. Kids can be cruel to each other. And these things have happened. For people who were traumatized as kids, there may even be like a neurological injury there in the part of, the mirror neurons, the part of our brain and nervous system that's designed to allow us to feel connected and to have intuition and to have intimacy with others, like emotional intimacy. And that if you have an injury in the part of you that's for that, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And so you see other people, it's like all the other, an example for me that was very hard was the other moms. Moms get together and they chit chat and they bond and they're laughing and they're drinking wine. And I would always be sort of like, what's going on here? I don't know why, but I'm not really connecting with everybody.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I think about and make jokes about isn't landing.
Right.
And I don't fit in. And why is it like it's always like that? And I don't always have an answer. Like nobody fits in everywhere. But I think my trauma symptoms and the stuff that I had been through, it's just kind of like this little barrier inside. And it's very hard to put your finger on. It's easy to think, it's because they hate me. It's because there's something no good about me. It's easy to think that. But because I had my daily practice techniques, I was always getting my fears and resentments on paper about those awful moms. And I was releasing it. I was asking for it to be removed. I was getting refreshed again. I would come at it new and I just kind of saw, well, I am a little different. The stuff that I think about and care about is a little different. We like some of the same TV shows and we can talk about that. But like I was going through this miserable divorce and they weren't.
Right.
And that's significant. And I was older than they were. I was like an older mom. And then I was an older mom of little tiny toddlers. And I was struggling like all the time. And then I think I was probably seen as like the struggling one. But I had my tools and I knew what to do. But it was after I had kids, after I had been using my daily practice, after I had shown hundreds of people these techniques, so much of my life was already devoted to sharing. I had found a way to feel better. I didn't know that I had complex PTSD. I just thought I was a weirdo. It's like, if you're weird in the way that I am, you might want to try this. Yeah. And I just, lots and lots of people would ask me to show them. But I realized at this time I had very few good friends. My friends were just not that good. And I didn't see it coming. I thought they were good. I thought they were fun friends. They were friends who were good for coming to parties or going for a hike and stuff. But if you needed meals made and your kids picked up at school and you needed a ride home from the hospital, they were not your friend.
Right.
And
what age did you figure that out?
Well, I guess, so I had this 4-year period, and I guess I was 41 when it started. Wow. When I was divorced, I stopped using my daily practice. I was so mad. I thought see, it doesn't work. I didn't get what I wanted.
Yeah.
And my first birth was difficult and I was injured in it. And later they did a surgery to try to repair that. And that surgery went wrong and it led to 14 major surgeries, where, 14-hour crisis things, muscles transferred, blood transfusions, problems, appliances. I had this very hard 4 years and I was a single mom. It was so hard. I had to go to the emergency room 44 times. Whoa. And I didn't have help. Wow. So I would call on neighbors. I would just call on anybody. Yeah. Can you just help me? It's 3 a.m. I need you to get over here. I have to get to the emergency room. Something's going on and I have to get there. And it was just this terrible time. And so even though I thought I was done with therapy, I went back. I'm like, I need a straight answer. Why is this happening? Why me? And they were like, well, let's see. You don't have a mom. My mom had died. Yeah. You don't have a dad. My dad had died. You don't have siblings. They were either, addicts or scattered or, not there. And you've lost all your friends. You have friends, but they're not this kind. And you don't have a sister like that kind of sister friend, somebody who helps you through these hard times. And she just laid it on me. And it was just this terrible truth to face. I just don't have that. And so I thought, I'm going to have to sort this out. Yeah. I've got to find a way to break through and have the right kind of friends. And I guess I had always known. I'd always felt like fundamentally lonely, even in parties, even in relationships, just lonely. And so I set about to figure it out. And that was the beginning of a 2 or 3 years of what I call my monastic period.
Wow. You know, when I read that in the book, or I read about the idea of people feeling so lonely, I thought about, I was a dietitian in a hospital. And so I used to see a lot of patients, a lot of them would pass away. And it would be so interesting where at the time where you imagine anybody and everybody would come to someone's bedside when they're about to die. The amount of people that died by themselves was heartbreaking. Like it was so sad to see. And I was thinking about how, you know, my grandma would always talk about this idea of when she was in a village and where she would live, and how everyone, her door would be open and everyone would come in and their doors would be open and the children would go play at that house and they'd come over to here. She'd be feeding maybe sometimes 15 people every single night. And everyone was so connected. There was always someone to help. There was always someone there. They were always there for other people. And then I thought about now, and I thought about the hospital, and I was thinking, wow, even if people have children, sometimes they're disconnected from them. Even if people have family, you usually think, okay, family, the basic people that you will have is your family. But nowadays, there's disconnection in family. And so many people, whether it's a cultural thing, I definitely saw that there was a difference between specific cultures, where some cultures people will show up even if they hate them because it's the right thing to do, versus in some cultures it was just not. They would die alone. They were in the hospital. They had no one to call. And it made me so sad. And so I think, and it opened my eyes to, I grew up in an Indian house where there was a lot of people around and everyone was there helping each other. We had a big extended family and everyone showed up whether they wanted to or not. And in other cultures, it wasn't the same. And so I think your book, like when I read it, I thought, wow, it is so needed in a world where you can literally be surrounded by so many people and walk into a room and feel alone, walk into a room and feel like you don't belong, be in a hospital and have no one coming to visit you. How did you get to a place from feeling disconnected? Because I imagine this person who's, you know, in hospital at the end of their life, having no one coming to see them. I think, how do you stop someone getting to that point? How do you get, how as someone who doesn't have family members that will show up for you, how do you started at the age of 40 building connections with people. How did you do that?
It was a process. I was very confused. I really had no like cognitive idea why it was going on. The information about what is complex PTSD wasn't there yet. What I can tell you now is that my daily practice all along had been a tool for re-regulation, even though that concept wasn't there. I thought that I was just temperamental or something. But your nervous system is there as a connecting organ, you know, to people. There's some theories. I don't know if this is true, but it feels true that the collective consciousness is really like the network of nervous systems.
I believe it.
You know, we all feel each other. We are connected. And when our nervous system can't hook us to the Wi-Fi like that, there it is. You know, there it is. You literally can walk into the room and you can't read the room. You can't feel the people. They can't feel you.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like switched off. And so for me, that was a great relief. It's like, okay, so I'm not crazy. There is something going on. And so learning to re-regulate your nervous system is just the first thing for everything. Suddenly, now you have choices. Now you can connect. You'll find out now you don't even like everybody, but you know, all kinds of good things can happen. You can set boundaries. You can communicate what you really think. You can cope with being sort of a new person in a group. There's so many things that can happen if you know how to re-regulate. You can go to therapy. You can remember, you know, what happened at therapy. And you can have an instinctive sense when you've said something that maybe hurt somebody's feelings. You see that little thing in their eyes that are like, ouch. You see it now and you can respond to it. So that's what it is when you are disconnected like that. This will sound harsh, and I don't mean to be harsh, but it's just true. Like there's an insensitivity there to other people. And when you can't show up for the nuances of connection, like let's say somebody tells you, I need to get my knee replaced, and it's coming Tuesday. So if they told me that before when I was dysregulated, I'd be like, oh, wow, that's really heavy. How's that going to go? You know, blah, blah, blah. But I wouldn't remember that the next day. I wouldn't get in touch.
Right.
And so I remembered that if somebody needs something, you're supposed to offer help, or you're supposed to bring flowers to a dinner party. I could remember sort of actions like that, but I didn't have that connection that was like, poor Cindy, she must be anxious tonight. Tomorrow's the day. I think I'll give her a call. Does she need anything? And just let her know I'm thinking of her. Does she want to visit her tomorrow? Even if you do nothing, but just to be aware what other people are going through and the good things. Hey, guess what? I gave a presentation and my hands weren't shaking this time. I did something. You can start to feel other people. And this is the opposite of loneliness, to have these sort of shared ups and downs with people where you feel it too, and you're going through it together. And I had to first focus on paying attention to other people. Yeah. I paid attention to being honestly loving to other people. And that's how I ended up loving myself. That's the order it went in.
Such a big part of what you're saying and what I'm hearing from that is just presence, like being able to be present in that moment. Yep. I was actually just speaking to my friend and she has OCD. And so when she has an OCD flare up, it makes it really difficult for her she dysregulates and she kind of becomes present. She's there physically, but her mind can completely disconnect from the moment. And afterwards she'll say to me, I'm so sorry. I know you were talking, but I just wasn't there. I literally could not participate in the conversation because I was so in my head. I could not even hear what you were saying. I couldn't hear what anybody was saying, which is why, and when people wouldn't know that, they think, why is she not listening? Or she'll ask again, sorry, what did you say? And everyone would think that she's just being ditzy or just not listening. I've been in situations where because I've been so in my head, I would go into a situation, I think, this person feels like they're not really wanting to connect with me, or they don't feel like they want to talk to me, or I'd constantly go into these social situations and think that they didn't want to connect to me. And then I realized, and then when you talked about the nervous system of everyone being connected, it made me think about, well, the energy that I was probably giving off was, I'm not actually present here right now. So they could whether they were conscious of it or not, energetically, they could feel I'm not actually there to connect. Yeah. Therefore, they're not going to invest time into connecting with me.
They feel abandoned by you.
Yeah. They don't feel like I'm there. I'm not actually listening. I'm looking around. Yeah. I'm not focused on you, what you're saying. And exactly what you said, if someone would tell me something was wrong, my husband would remember and they'd be like, remember this person's got this. And I thought, yeah, maybe I should reach out. But my heart wasn't thinking I should reach out. Yeah. And then eventually when I realized that so much of it wasn't them, so much of it was me and what they were I was projecting something onto them and they were just responding. Yeah. And so instead of constantly thinking that person didn't like me or that person wasn't interested in my life or they probably think I'm just stupid because I can't talk about these things so they're not connecting me, whatever stories we make up in our mind of why that person's doing it. Yeah. You end up realizing, actually, as soon as I put one hand out, they're reaching back. As soon as I say something caring, they're wanting to care back. And so it's so much about reciprocation, but sometimes you have to start that cycle. Yeah. You have to be the one to first give something for someone to feel something for them to give it back to you. And I think that's a really difficult realization to have because you realize, oh crap, it's me. I have to do the work.
Yeah, but yay, it's me.
It's me. Exactly. And I think you can go through you kind of go through oh no, it's me. And then you can go through, okay, that means I have things I can do, tools I can put into place, and a way that I can fix this. Yeah. And it's really beautiful to hear that you did that at 40, or someone can do it at 50, at 60. Someone can do it when they're in hospital at 70 and think, I'm going to become best friends with the person next to me right now. And I'm going to hear everything that they're going through and we're going to make it through this together. Yeah. And it's such from your friend who did that for you early on in your life to now, it's just, you realize there are so many little moments that you have the ability to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's, I think I've taught this to about 1 million people via YouTube in my free course, and I'll share the link with you.
Yeah, please.
If people are interested in how to do the techniques that sort of get this ball rolling. It's a little specific. So when I describe it, I always want to say it's a little specific, and so that you can get it from the book or the free course I offer. But so about 1 million people have learned it. And then I just sort of sent a survey out to my students and I'm like, who have you taught it to? People are teaching it to people who are dying in hospice. Wow. They're teaching it in prisons. They're teaching it in nursery schools. Kids can do it.
Please share it with us.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, for people who are dying, I think I feel that's the most poignant thing you can do is learn to wake up before you die and be able to connect with people. And not to die lonely, even if there's not a lot of people around.
Or not disconnected. Like you're going to end up, I'm sure you can feel like you don't have many people, but to still feel like you're connected to the world.
Yeah.
To anybody and anything around you. I think
Yeah.
you're so right. Even if it's just waking up for a glimpse of a moment before
Yeah.
you leave, to know that you had that moment of connection is so important.
Oh yeah. There's so many things I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised by how people are. First of all, people are lovely. By and large, people are lovely.
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially when I'm right out of meditation, I used to do my meditation on the BART train. It's like the subway that goes to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Go to work there when I was first healing, and everything was changing so fast. I stopped smoking. I would get off the subway and I'd come out, and it's just like it smells like pee. It's just full of garbage. You know, everybody's asking for money. I would just be like, hello. I was just feeling good. Like, you're beautiful people. I'm off to work. See you later. I just felt good.
Yeah.
And I felt connected, you know, I felt connected to the people who were around.
Yeah.
And didn't have so much of that, like, well, not these people and not these. But this is one of the things about connectability. Like, stage 1 is you awaken. Stage 2 is you got to start learning the stuff that gets in the way. And we have a lot in the way, especially if we've been living disconnected. We're sort of like, you know, like the hermit in the woods in a certain way of just like, hey, you kids, get off the lawn. You know? And so one of the things is boundaries. If you have good boundaries, you can afford to get close to people. You've got to know that you have a way out.
Right.
So if you're somebody who just is so people pleasing that no matter how awful a situation is, like somebody's driving drunk, for example, will you get out of the car? Well, I don't want to offend them. Like, a boundary would be, I'm going to get out of the car if somebody's driving drunk.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you have boundaries, you can get in the car, so to speak. If you say, if things get crazy, I know what to do. And I'm using this as a metaphor. I'm not recommending people get into a car where you have questions about this. But just that hanging out with people, going on a date, making a friend, deciding to spend the holidays with your family when your family is kind of rough for you, or brings out the worst in you, let's say. That if you have boundaries and, you know, have a plan B, like if things get weird, I'm not going to argue. We're not going to talk about politics. I'm going to help in the kitchen. If anybody tries to like bait me into a thing that we've fought about in the past,
I'm not going there.
I'm just going to say something really lighthearted. You know, I've learned from some of the most wonderful people. I've looked at people who are great at connecting and how they do it. And some people are just geniuses at this. I have an English husband.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. And he's very old school. He's from the North, you know, he's still like, he's a little younger than me, but he feels like he's from another era, you know, and he's just like all about like being courteous, kind, gentle with people. If you have a criticism, don't say it. If you have to say it, you say like the tiniest little piece of it so they understand the nature of the problem, but you would never, ever hurt their self-esteem, even if you hate them.
Yeah. I feel like I learned that from my husband too. He's like been one of the biggest lessons in what actual connection to people mean. Like he's no matter how busy he is, he's like the best friend to people. He's always available, always there for people in the right way, but still has his boundaries of how he knows how many people he can connect to, or like scheduling time to make sure that he's speaking to the right people when they need it. And it's just, and watching him even in a room being so present, it was how I realized, it's like you said, when you see someone who is actually so good at connection, it makes you realize, oh, this is actually what I'm lacking. Like, this is how you can be, and how do you figure out the steps towards actually becoming that? It's so actually beautiful to see someone or have an example of that in your life. Yes.
And to see it, and also to be receptive to learning from it rather than resenting it. So I think I used to feel so ashamed in the presence of people who were kind and generous that I would just judge them and write them off.
Yeah, or I think they have superpowers. I'm like, how did you remember that person's name? And I don't.
Or it's because you're rich, or something. Did you see the story in the book? I think it was later. There's a woman I call Evelyn, and
I don't think I made it to Evelyn yet.
Evelyn, well, she's a real person. She's not living anymore, but she was dating my first husband's dad, and my first husband's dad was a pretty rough fellow. And did you ever see Austin Powers?
Yes.
And you know his dad, played by Michael Caine.
Yes.
It was like that was like my first father-in-law, and we were visiting, and you know, our relationship came together hastily, and we decided to be together when I was 7 months pregnant with our first kid. We ended up getting married. We ended up having another kid. But when I met his family, they had never heard of me before, and they did their best to be kind, but you know, they were completely like, who is this lady? What is she? Is she just trying to like get something? Or they were distrustful. And I was dressed in these shabby maternity clothes, and we went out for the day to go to Canterbury Cathedral. I don't remember it very well. I think it was great. But I was in the backseat of the car, like 8 months pregnant or something so big, just like in this tiny little English car. And the men are having a conversation without me. And then we swing by and we pick up Evelyn. And Evelyn squeezes into the back with me. And she just had this incredible quality of instantly making me feel not judged, appreciated, like we were just chums in on a little joke together. And I was, 35? She was 70.
Wow.
She was so kind. And then afterwards she goes, why don't we all go over to my place? We'll go play Scrabble. We go to her place. And it was like this mansion. And then normally I would have thought, oh, here we go. The people that I can't deal with, they're just like, they think they're so great or something. But she was already my friend.
Yeah.
And I never would have guessed. And so I'm there in this beautiful home in these dirty overalls, with my giant belly. And I think they're like men's overalls, not like maternity overalls.
Yeah.
And they were from a thrift store. And she just had this way. I had the best day. And I just never forgot that. I was like, how did she learn that? How did she get that? And so I found out later she's from a very famous family that is well known, and the name is well known, and I didn't know. And she just was outstanding. She was a great person. And sometimes I've noticed that people, I don't think this is universally true, but the old resentment I had that people had to be like from a really rough past to be legitimate to me. It was just silly. It was silly. And wonderful people. Sometimes the reason people are so successful is because they're wonderful.
Definitely.
That's been my experience. Yeah.
You really feel that energy, don't you, as soon as you meet someone, which is why you can also feel the opposite when you first meet someone, and how interesting, how easily that could shift for you. Like you've gone from, not easily, it was a difficult journey, but there is a possibility to go from someone who feels inaccessible and cold to being someone who is exactly like that, makes someone feel warm in the moment that you meet them. Yeah. That's actually such a beautiful gift to have. And I think it takes a lot of, I think it does take a lot of getting to know yourself and a lot of work on yourself to be that kind of person for someone. Like to be able to give that energy to someone, it takes a lot, I think. Yeah. Another word that I really loved in your book that you speak about is covert avoidance. Yeah. I actually noticed like a few qualities in myself of that that I've done before. Could you explain a little bit about it and why do so many of us do it?
Well, there's obvious avoidance. Those are and they talk, people like that are on my YouTube channel. They talk to me they come at night, they leave a negative message and say, stop making videos about getting along with people. People are terrible and I hate them. Okay. That's an overt avoider. And then we talk about dating an avoidant. Some of us have done that before once or twice. Yeah. And where somebody, just never texts back and then they show up and you're confused all the time and it's aggravating your feeling of abandonment. But then there's some of us, we're avoidant ourselves in hidden ways we can't see.
It was the hidden ones that you mentioned.
Hidden. Yes. Yeah, it's hidden.
Could you share some of those examples?
Yeah. So looking at your phone at dinner is avoidant. Yeah. And it's not really hidden, but it's culturally acceptable in most cases. But sometimes you got to ask yourself, what am I doing? I'm sitting, I think most people feel a little fundamentally lonely. They'd like to feel more connected to people. And the thing is, when your nervous system is all rattled from being online all day, and I don't know about you, but I work on YouTube, which has a lot of little side trips you can take into what else is going on YouTube today. And I get very distracted, and then it can turn very negative. Here's all the people ranting about stuff, and you agree with them or you hate them or whatever. It's just a lot of stuff. And you're checking out. You're just disconnecting from the great nervous system connection that we're actually enjoying with other people. I like being alone. I like a certain amount of solitude, but I can feel alone in a crowd. And I remember at the worst of my loneliness, I would go to a party, come home from the party, and I didn't have that, woo, that was a party feeling.
I get that. I've had that before.
Yeah. Like nothing happened to me.
Yes.
Nothing happened. It was just, I was inert.
Yeah. I was there, but not there.
Yeah, I was there, but not there. And then the loneliness continues and we go, why? So it's a lack of making a commitment to people. It's a lack of being present with them. And so being present you have to understand, like the word boundaries used to sound like psychobabble to me. The word being present really used to sound like psychobabble to me. Like, what is it? If you've never done it and people go, try to be present, it doesn't translate into anything that you know. It's something that I think you can think of it like you have an inner power inside, an inner well, and it slowly fills. You can deplete it, you can fill it. And there's certain nourishing ways of being that fill it. And there are things that deplete it, like having an argument with your partner, or not taking care of yourself, watching Netflix all day when you needed to do something else.
Yeah.
Just the ordinary things we do. And it could be worse, it could be much worse. Not apologizing to somebody you just hurt. We just disconnect. We disconnect. And when you're in the habit of being disconnected, and it's not always conscious, the thing is, if you're a person who's dysregulated, you have to disconnect. It's just too stressful to be connected to people if you can't manage your own nervous system. And so you're always holding yourself at a certain distance. And how I cracked it, I figured it out. I go, every once in a while, I go on a big push. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to be like social. I'm going to join a bunch of groups and I'm going to volunteer and I'll bring the brownies to the school and I'll do the thing. And then I'll do like 10 things. And within half a day, I'm just like,
I need to sit in a dark room and not talk to anyone.
Yeah, these people are crazy. I can't do it. So it's really this slow process of letting your well get full every day, or as you go, to take care of yourself, to fill the well, to use your meditation, to use your tools, to move your body, to eat good food, just the usual stuff. And you won't even get it all right every day. You never will, but you might do a couple good things. And then you can become present a little bit. But these obstacles will always stop you every time. So it's avoidance, just straight up avoidance or covert avoidance, holding people at arm's length. It's not having boundaries. It's having a life that's populated with mean people or troubled people. Like if you grew up with trauma and you've been living disconnected, that's what happens. And so it's always like, I hate my job. I hate my partner. I hate my neighbors. My friends are just like a bunch of gossips. It's this, and you know what? That's actually who we've allowed into our lives.
Yeah.
Because we're so disconnected that the people who were connectable, who had connectability, they weren't available to us. So we end up with these people who they don't fit us. And then there's this sad stage when you let those people go. It's a leap of faith because, and everybody I've worked with I coach so many people on this. They're like, but if I'm not friends with these gossipy, mean women, who else do I have? I'm like, just release, just like stop putting energy into it. See what happens. You be alone for a while, and this is your special period, your monastic period. Now you will live like a monk, right? Like your husband did. But now it's this period of deep awareness and self-reflection where you can begin to notice where it is, where you're pulling away, what's hard for you, how can you strengthen yourself? And then you begin to develop the boundaries. You begin to develop social grace. All of us are a little socially awkward. Social awkwardness is endearing if it's not full of self-hatred. It's cute.
Wow, yeah. The two that you mentioned also to do with the avoidance in the book was you kind of avoid making solid plans with someone. Like if someone's like, we should meet up. And you're like, yeah, I'll let you know. And you never let them know.
How do you live in LA? LA's like the worst for that.
They do that. And then the other one was when people message you and you see the message, but you just don't message back at the moment. Like you end up taking a long time to reply back to people.
Or you just go or little thumbs up or whatever. Exactly. When actually what's needed is, okay, when is your surgery? Or, how are you feeling?
And I noticed I was doing so much of that, and I had to consciously, so even in the moment when I would see the message and I would put my phone away, I had to bring the practice back of getting my phone back out and replying there and then. I'm like, if I don't do this now, I know I'm not going to do it. And then setting dates and times to actually meet people. And because I remember thinking, especially when I moved to LA and I was craving community, it was a choice of, okay, I'm just going to wait for the community to come to me and I'm going to wait for that to happen, which by the way, doesn't normally happen. Or you actually have to make the conscious effort to create that. And that means if you want connection, you can't not reply to people. You can't not set dates to meet people. So there's something about, okay, my mind is saying I want something, but are my actions showing that I actually want it? And if the two are disconnected, then it's not going to happen. So I can desire to have a community, but what actions am I actually taking? What's my physical body and my mind doing to actually make that happen? And I think sometimes we can think that our desires are so strong and so pure, and you're like, oh, but I really want this, but it's not happening. But you're the one that may not be making it happen.
Isn't it true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can really believe that it's a sad sob story in your mind because you really want it so badly. But the wanting it so badly has to be matched with action of doing it so badly.
Yeah, it's really easy to go into your head though, like I don't want to look too eager.
Yeah,
or,
exactly. It's so true.
When I lived in LA, I'm from Northern California, and we have our own kind of things, But in England is also tricky for me. But I feel more at home in England than I do in Los Angeles.
Do you?
I do, yeah. I always have. But what I don't understand about English people.
Yeah, please tell me. I'll help you understand us.
Yeah, when they say they're annoyed.
Oh, annoyed, yeah.
Annoyed here
So
means like saying, I'm really annoyed with you.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
Here that just means, so what, like a little fly sort of like, anyway, no.
That means I'm pissed.
They're mad.
Yeah.
They're like, they could be furious with you.
Yes.
And so I've had to learn that with my husband too. Some of the words don't quite mean the
language.
same thing.
No.
I'm like, but you only said you were annoyed. And he's like, and you needed to take it seriously. I'm like, but it's annoyance.
I would love to hear what you think the hardest truth from all the people that you have coached online and that you've helped through. What do you think has been the hardest truth for people to actually hear or learn about healing that they don't want to accept?
Well, it's really good news, actually. It's like, I call it the epiphany.
Yeah.
When people work with me long enough to have their epiphany like I did, there's this day that comes where all of a sudden you go, I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah.
That's the great moment. Mm-hmm. And so some people are not ready for that moment. It feels like invalidation.
Yeah.
Like they're still dealing with stuff that was done to them, and it doesn't feel fair they're just like, why do I have to be the one to heal? Why do I have to look at errors? What was done to me was so wrong and so terrible. And that's true. And if you're in that state, it's really hard to do something like, there's this trend right now where people cut contact with their family.
Yeah.
And I think that's an expression of being in that place where the wounds have got all your attention. Now, I'm not, I think if a person thinks maybe they're ready to move on and they're struggling, one question is, well, wwho's helping you? Are you listening to people? Do you have friends or a therapist maybe who's really bought into the idea that everything is about what was done to you? Because that's true. It happened and it was terrible and it wasn't your fault. But thankfully, it's not happening anymore. And now, like you still have days alive here to open your heart, to get some strength in your spirit and some boundaries to be able to go forward and become who you are. I think we're too quick to think that healing means, oh, I'm not sad anymore, or I stopped talking to the bad people. But that comes with its own sadness.
Yes.
Healing to me is when all these problems are out of the way sufficiently. There's always going to be problems, but they don't rock your boat so much. And all your energy, this is the great thing about growing older even, like all your energy can go into the thing that you were made to do. And everybody knows, that there's something better in you than whatever you have to muck around with right now or wherever you've got yourself stuck. We've all had to have the cruddy jobs or, the bad roommates or difficult, heartbreaks and things. We all go through hard things, but it gets better. It gets better. And the thing that everybody was waiting for, the thing that I want to be saying when I'm at the last day of my life is like, I'm so glad I learned to love everybody. I'm so glad I feel loved.
Yeah.
Learning to love people it's like the greatest endeavor. It's the greatest endeavor. That's what it is. So when so much focus on how terrible they are, it's not that it's not true, but if it's all you ever talk about, it's going to take you away from the thing that will make you happy.
The ability to love.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation. This was honestly so beautiful. And I really do think, as much as your book is, focused on people that may have PTSD or that have gone through childhood trauma, I actually think it is literally for every single person, because I think we all could connect deeper. We can all create better relationships. We can all work on ourselves, and that beautiful practice that you share in that book, I think it is for every single person. So as much as we've spoken about childhood trauma and PTSD, I am genuinely saying that I think this book is something that will just help us become better people and better humans for the collective consciousness and help raise that. So thank you so much for being here. It's just such a beautiful conversation, and I can't wait to dive deeper into the book.
Yes. It's a step-by-step path, not just a lot of talk. I tell you
what to
do.
Yes.
Do this. Yeah.
Thank you.